Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gestalt IT Rundown, your weekly look at the IT news of the week. We come to you every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's just how we roll here. And I guess we could say it's 11:30 Central, whatever. It gets complicated. My name is Rich Stroffolino. Thank you so much for joining us. I am joined, as always, by Tom Hollingsworth, a.k.a. the Networking Nerd. Tom, how are you this fine afternoon or morning where you're at?
And if you're in Hawaii, good morning, since it's 7:30 a.m. and it's a pleasure to talk to you. I'm Great Rich, and it's a pleasure to be on once again.
All right, so the news cycle, I don't know if it's quite ramped up. We're kind of in, the general tech media is in a CES hangover. They were blacked out earlier last week, which was hilarious to see everyone freaking out on Twitter. But on the IT enterprise side, some interesting stories coming out. I wanted to start out with maybe an update on where we're at with Meltdown Spectre kind of news. I know personally, I've kind of been inundated with this since the kind of hit the news cycle, but it's super relevant for a lot of organizations, and really we're just starting to realize a lot of the implications for it. And I thought I'd start out with a really interesting piece by SolarWinds. They put out on their blog a visual impact of what they're seeing on AWS, and this is kind of an insight we haven't really seen a lot of. We've heard that cloud providers are really getting hit. AWS, Microsoft, Google, all of them are getting hit, but that's a little bit opaque to the ordinary cloud consumer. Luckily, SolarWinds logs the heck out of everything, and they came up with some really great numbers. To start off, kind of just right off the bat, they were seeing a lot of CPU spikes on a lot of their instances. On para-virtualized instances, they were seeing a 25% impact increase in CPU performance. Coming more into there, because if you're not familiar with SolarWinds, they're into, amongst a whole bunch of other things, network monitoring, cloud monitoring, that kind of stuff. And they use Kafka stream processing for a lot of that. On that, they were seeing a 40% drop in packets being able to be processed because of all of the extra CPU being utilized. On some of their Cassandra instances, they were seeing a 25% increase in CPU again, with a 45% increase in latency. And then probably the most substantial was in their Elasticache services. They were seeing a 100% increase in latency, which was leading to all sorts of tail latency or increased tail latency, all sorts of cache timeouts. Really, really impactful stuff from your business. And if you don't have any kind of overhead built in, very detrimental. The other thing that we were seeing is Oracle just came out and announced that the Spark v9 architecture is vulnerable to Spectre vulnerabilities. We're going to be seeing some patches coming out for that, and they released like 100 super high critical patches for a whole bunch of hardware coming out of Oracle. So a lot of legacy Sun storage systems were impacted by that. And that can get kind of scary because, again, the older your Intel processors, the more, not that that's necessarily impact this, but the older the processor generally, we're seeing the greater impact for a lot of Spectre stuff. Could have some very serious business impact. Finally, Google was coming out with a Retpoline, I believe is the name of the patch for Chrome, that's going to be coming out on the 23rd. And they had some mitigation suggestions, isolation, that kind of stuff. And they announced that Android is not vulnerable to Spectre, the most current version, which I believe is Oreo, but all other versions are, and you're kind of SOL because they're not going to patch those because, hey, we're Google, ha. So, Tom, anything there kind of jump out at you, or is this in line with the sky is falling that we initially heard when these vulnerabilities were just kind of coming to light?
The sky isn't falling. The ceiling's just been lowered significantly. That's all this is. If this was one chip that was having a huge problem, I might see an issue with it. But literally everyone is going to see these problems. If you remember back to short story fame, this is basically Harrison Bergeron. Everyone is going to suck equally going forward. So there's, you can raise as much of a stink about it as you want, or you can get down to the keyboard and code some stuff that's going to work, because you can't count on the horsepower under the hood anymore. You can't assume that your resources are infinite.
It is really interesting, though. I've seen a lot of thought pieces coming out recently about the impact this is going to have as the data center is increasingly moving to software-defined, and particularly software-defined storage having massive impacts. I was seeing some tweets of seeing six-figure drops in IOPS, post Spectre patching and that kind of stuff. So, we may have been living in the age of good enough CPU, and we'll get there again. But in the meantime, it's like you said, everyone's going to suck equally. Tom, do you think this will open a door or maybe give a temporary reprieve against the onslaught of kind of software-defined commodity hardware kind of dominating, especially in the storage space?
I don't think it will, because I think that the developers are going to figure out a way to make it work with the workloads. Plus, if Intel is as good as they claim and they can fix this in the next generation of CPUs, we're going to be right back to the gigahertz arm race all over again. The problem that I have, though, is, like you said, people who program nowadays, they don't expect limitations on the hardware. And especially in cloud, just add another core, add 10 more cores, add 100. And now that all 100 of those cores are running 25% less efficiency, you're less efficiently, you need to have more efficient code, because if you don't, you're not going to get the resources you need. I don't think it's going to stop it. It might slow it down for the next 6 months, but we're going to be right back here in January 2019 talking about 75 billion IOPS from some software storage developer.
Well, and that kind of leads into our next story. We just heard from Caminario. Is that how you pronounce the company? Basically, a big, pretty big storage vendor, kind of in the one of the early movers in the all-flash array kind of business. They're getting out of the hardware business proper, and instead are going to be partnering with a company called Tech Data. They're going to be moving purely to a software-defined model, providing their Vision OS, analytics, automation, and orchestration packages, and moving all of their hardware to Tech Data. What's really interesting to me is that they are going to be doing this on their K2 array, which is actually a composable infrastructure model. We've seen no lack of companies kind of moving away from not in proprietary hardware. In Caminario's case, they were basically using commodity parts. But the interesting thing there is kind of the embracing of more of a composable methodology. Tom, is this just, okay, another company is moving to software defined, or is this, are we starting to see the turn away from composable infrastructure being that weird thing that HPE is doing to something that's increasingly viable in the enterprise?
Well, I think what you're starting to see is that hardware is a really, really tough business to be in. And I know this because I used to buy things from Tech Data, and I know how much money they make off stuff and how much money I used them to make money off of stuff, and it's slim. So Caminario not being able to make money doesn't surprise me. Tech Data being able to take Caminario and put it on some of their stuff kind of makes sense when you think about it, because Tech Data buys a lot of stuff. But I don't necessarily know that this is a win for composable infrastructure yet. Composable infrastructure does not have a technology problem; it has a customer problem. I could build the world's best mousetrap, but if nobody beats a path to my door, who cares?
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is as the ersatz torchbearer for it, HPE has not done a really great job of making the business case for it in a lot of instances. So I think when a lot of people hear the term, they're just like, all right, that's a weird thing I can already kind of get with virtualization. What's the big deal? So it'll be interesting to see if that is a true differentiator, and really brings that forth for Tech Data. I wonder, is that, to me, signals that is this Caminario making themselves better as an acquisition target as well?
Yeah,
remove that nasty hardware business, and all of a sudden you can buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, this is slimming down for acquisition or repackaging somewhere else, and the fact that they are starting to rely on a distributor to make their hardware as opposed to doing it through another company basically says, please buy us.
All right, we have a couple Google announcements I thought were pretty interesting. One is that Google is launching its own IT certification program called, unsurprisingly, the Google IT Support Professional Certificate. It's done through Coursera, and it's a 8 to 12 week month program, with a whole bunch of hours of video, all sorts of good stuff. What's really interesting, though, is that once you complete the certification package, you're going to be able to, through Coursera, basically send that certification and be like, hey, I'm awesome employee to a whole bunch of partner companies that are looking for IT support staff. interested in what you think about this, because on the one hand, I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. On the other hand, if it's Google's own IT certification, that does a really good job of training you to be an IT professional. I know if I want it homogenizing, I guess, how we're training IT professionals going forward. I mean, I know it's, it's a discipline. It's not like it's this crazy esoteric art, but to me, it seems like having one company, setting a standard like that, it seems like there might be a danger in that.
I don't understand what the big deal is. I was a Google certified IT professional 15 years ago, and that was when I worked for Gateway, because I used Google to solve all of my problems. I don't understand Google's reasoning behind this. Are they saying that the A+ isn't good enough for people anymore? Or are they saying that things have changed so much that there needs to be something new? Because I used to literally have a wall behind my desk littered with certificates of companies that I had been certified with, and it all amounted to nothing at the end of the day. People still call me, hey, I have how do I get a CCNA to get a job at a place? I'm like, get a job, get the experience, and then get the CCNA. Because walking in with a CCNA and no experience is a surefire way to get shown the door.
About the Google IT support professional certification, not replacing the A+ anytime soon. Skeptical about how really useful it's going to be, or if it's just, again, going to be something on the wall. The other big piece of Google news coming out was that they released a tool called AutoML. And this is basically a drag and drop GUI for setting up machine learning models with no coding experience required, which seems a little dubious to me. They're launching it, I think it's like in an alpha right now, so it's super high level. But the idea of this is it's specifically focused on images, at least to start, but I believe you're going to be able to move in all sorts of data. But basically, you have your own data set of images, whether you're, for me, the ideal purpose is you're like a e-commerce company or something like that, and you have 500 pictures of shoes or of a shirt or something like that. You feed all those into the model, they're able to tell that, and then you're able to kind of plug into that algorithm and use that then for prediction going forward. Tom, the thing is, the whole pitch of this is that it's going to be, hey, you can do machine learning without coding. But the only way you can really take advantage of that after you have this trained algorithm, I feel like, is to build a tool with coding. How useful is this? Is this just like saving you, I don't know, some man hours on your end? Because you're still going to need someone who has expertise in machine learning to make that data set, to make that algorithm useful, right?
Yeah, this reminds me of Swift Playgrounds on the iPad. Teach my kids to code. Awesome, great. What are you going to do with it afterwards? You've literally built a tool that can automate a thing or give you some machine learning code specific to one application. Ooh.
Yeah, this kind of struck me as the Bob Ross of machine learning, where it's great. Like, you now know how to make a pine tree, some happy little clouds, a mountain. You want to draw a person? Good luck. We have nothing for you, right?
Yeah, forget this tool. Go out and write your own happy little code.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, but will we see more tools like this, because there still is a dearth of machine learning expertise that's available for hire, or a lot of organizations feel like they can't afford them at this moment. So are these kind of tools, even if this is more specialized, this is just like single use machine learning training, are we going to see more tools like this, though, because people just don't want to hire a full-time machine learning expert?
Okay, I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to look at you, the people out there who are looking to surf the next big wave of software-defined cryptocurrency, blockchain, whatever. Don't think that one tool is going to fix all of your machine learning problems. Get dirty. Hire programmers. Let them fix your problems specifically instead of trying to apply a standard wrench to every bolt you own.
Words to live by, Tom. We're going to get out of here on this, I think. Really interesting research coming from Alibaba, and as part of more to do with the Stanford question answering data set kind of benchmark. Alibaba recently released from their Institute of Data Science and Technologies that they've created a deep learning model that's able to beat humans on a quiz based on the Stanford data set. Basically, what this would do is it's pulled 500 Wikipedia articles and created a subset of 100,000 question and answers based on that, and tested humans and these various machine learning algorithms. All sorts of institutions were doing this: Microsoft, Google, a whole bunch of other research institutions were doing this, academic and commercial. And the Alibaba was able to, in the first instance, in the first kind of run through on these, do better in terms of comprehension than humans. Now, this was very short, the difference is very minute. In terms of a percentage, the Alibaba algorithm was able to do it 82.44% of the time, I believe, is what I was reading, and the humans were able to do it 82.304. So maybe we're in a rounding error, but it is interesting that certainly it signifies that there is at least a parity to there. The one caveat to that is, one, this was hyper specific, so I don't think we could say that a deep learning algorithm could read a novel and have the same level of comprehension perhaps as a human. And two, when there's a second level kind of metric for measuring this in terms of the overall precision of the algorithm, and humans were still far and above any other algorithm. Microsoft was actually second place with that, and humans were far and above what the algorithms were able to do at this time. However, if you look at kind of the trend, this was started up in 2016. Initially, we were looking at percentiles more in the 50% range, like low 60s, and it has rapidly improved over the course of 2 years as more and more research is thrown at it. So pretty much at a matter of time before we can, on these more specific instances that humans, it shouldn't be surprising to say that humans aren't doing as well as these algorithms at this point.
At this point, I pretty much think that this database of Wikipedia articles is fine. I'm going to feed it some of my teenagers' text messages and see how it does with that. There's more to reading comprehension than just understanding a Wikipedia article. And let's face it, most human beings aren't really good at that anyway. It's more a matter of understanding nuance in conversation and things like idioms. I mean, we don't want a computer telling us that we need to go open a burlap sack to let a cat out of it or something like that.
Yeah, it is interesting. I've seen, I'm trying to remember the company. There was just a press release that an HR kind of company had bought a bunch of chatbot resources, AI kind of technology based on that. And that's kind of where these two technologies kind of bridge the gap, right? Because you have, your deep learning that can do, all of this, question answer, pull basic question and answer stuff. The stuff I was seeing, the examples of some of these question and answers were not mind blowing. There was a paragraph about the geography of California, and it asked, what's the southern border of California called? Well, it's called the U.S.-Mexico, border. Like, it's not like it's pulling insights out of anything like that. So you're absolutely right, Tom. Where this has to kind of combine to really be useful for a lot of organizations is, one, being able to build a contextual understanding of what's going on, being able to, bridge multiple paragraphs, because it's literally just doing like word association semantic stuff. It's actually kind of similar to how I remember IBM's Watson using. I mean, that was just had a massive data set, and it was just looking for correlations among words to derive answers from. It wasn't necessarily understanding what it was saying. So, the machine's coming to take us all over, not exactly coming right now, but it's certainly an achievement. I don't want to take anything away from Alibaba or Microsoft or any of these researchers. It's definitely an achievement that they've been able to advance these algorithms so quickly. Like I said, a little over 2 years. And that kind of research is only going to get more intense.
Now, sufficiently advanced technology is still indistinguishable from magic, but it's still technology. And
we'll have more Arthur C. Clarke wisdom in future episodes of the Gestalt IT Rundown. Hey, if there are ever any news items that you want us to cover, or just overall trends that you want us to talk about on the show, you can send them over to me either by email, rich@gestaltit.com, or on Twitter @Mr. Anthropology. That's where you can find all of my good stuff on the tweets, and more good stuff at gestaltit.com. Tom, where can the good people find out more of your writing and more of your snarky opinions?
Well, if you want snarky comments that sound good on camera, send them to @networkingnerd on Twitter. You can DM or just tweet them out. You can also check out my blog at networkingnerd.net and some of the things that I write on gestaltit.com.
Now, Tom, you are going to be a busy guy the next 2 weeks, so I don't believe you will be on the rundown. But we got some cool guests coming up. Check out Twitter at Gestalt IT or at Mr. Anthropology. We'll have the announcements of who's going to be summoned for Tom. Tom, they can never replace you. They can only succeed you.
Thank you.
So until then, remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't know how you're watching this if you're not subscribed, but if you're not, please subscribe. That'd be awesome. And you'll find more awesome unboxing videos. We've got video podcasts going up on Gestalt IT YouTube page. So check that out as well. Plugfest is over, and so is the Gestalt IT Rundown. Until next time we meet, remember, have a super sparkly day.